Good. How are you? You in there? Working out.
Good afternoon. I'd like to convene the Utilities and Commerce Committee. We're going to start as a subcommittee. Sergeant, please call the absent members. We're going to consider 14 assembly bills today. AB 1005 has been pulled. Let's begin with Mr. Gers. Oh, I'm sorry. AB 1262 and AB 1524 will be taken up as consent items. Our first bill this morning will be Mr. Garcia presenting AB 197. Thank you for being here on time, Mr. Garcia.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Mr. Brian Dell, and your staff. Let me begin by prefacing my comments that we are more than glad to accept the committee's recommendations made in your analysis for AB 197. AB 197 is a measure that will help ensure a reliable and low-carbon grid for Californians by requiring the Public Utilities Commission to consider best fit attributes of renewable energy resources. Greenhouse gas emissions when considering renewable energy bids to comply with renewable portfolio standard. As California moves forward towards a more green economy, renewable energy resources beyond 33% mandate, and achieving the state's greenhouse gas goals, best fit attributes of renewable energy resources in addition to their total cost should be taken into consideration. Currently, overgeneration of some renewables is driving the state to look to at imbalanced markets. As more renewable energy resources come online and we rely less on resources like natural gas, issues dealing with grid reliability will have to be highly considered. Therefore, procuring renewable energy resources with the best fit attributes that ensure grid reliability and help meet the state's greenhouse gases should be a priority. I have with me two folks that will help testify with us, Jan McFarland with Energy Source, as well as Cuoco Jackson, that will say a few words.
Good afternoon, Chair Rendon, members of the UNC committee and staff. My name is Jan McFarland. I'm here on behalf of Energy Source, a geothermal company on the Salton Sea. We strongly support AB 197. We think it's prudent to add GHG reductions and grid reliability metrics for considering renewables under least cost best fit of the RPS. And we urge support of this bill. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members, Jack Walco with the Gualco Group on behalf of the Imperial Irrigation District. We think this is an important bill to help make it clear that the state's got an obligation to algebraically balance the requirements for the grid. In addition, we're here to support Mr. Garcia, our Assembly member, who continues to be an active advocate for a restoration plan that the state has obligated itself to the sea. At the sea, and we see the development of renewables, biomass, geothermal, and the whole host as a funding source for meeting that obligation and addressing the public health requirements of the Salton Sea. So we respectfully request an aye vote.
Thank you. Right. Do you have additional support witnesses, Mr. Garcia?
Not to... Oh, yeah, we do. We do. Yeah. My apologies.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, Julie Malinowski-Ball on behalf of the California Biomass Energy Alliance. We have a support position on this bill. As this body deliberates on a post-2020 climate plan and a renewable goal, we still believe there are refinements to the current RPS process that we would want to make and take into that future policy-making decisions, and looking at a more balanced portfolio is one of those things on behalf of the biomass industry, which is on the failing end of a very unbalanced portfolio. We urge your aye vote.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Matt Friedman on behalf of the Utility Reform Network. We are here in support of the bill. The bill offers some very appropriate refinements to the selection process for building RPS-compliant portfolios, and it adds the criteria of seeking to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in total as a result of those procurement choices. We think that's an appropriate addition to the criteria, and we also appreciate the committee's recommendation that this requirement apply to all retail sellers, not just electrical corporations.
Thank you.
Thank you. Melissa Cortez Roth on behalf of the California Wind Energy Association. We're actually slightly in the tweener category. We're very supportive of the goals of this bill and updating the least cost best fit process. We'd like to see the specific attributes of least cost best fit that need to be updated, more fleshed out in the legislation. Otherwise, we are a little fearful that it'll waste valuable time at the PUC, but we're very supportive of updating that process and would like to see that happen in the context of a 50% RPS. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's just do folks who we've had about 4 main support witnesses now. I'd like to hear from additional support witnesses now, just your name, affiliation, your position on the bill. This is just for supports at this time. We'll do tweeners and opposition later. Anyone else in support? Okay. Let's have the main opposition witnesses come forward, please, if there are any. Does anybody wish to speak at all in opposition to this bill? Let's do questions from committee members. Mr. Quirk?
I just wanted to compliment you, Eduardo Garcia, on bringing forward a bill that doesn't demand that a particular resource be credited, but simply asks that we balance it. And in regard to the last speaker, we can't go forward without 250% without doing the very things that you're talking about here. So I'm enthusiastic in support, and when we have a quorum, I will be glad to make a motion.
Thank you.
Mr. Daly?
Thank you. I wanted to say I did a bill last year along the same lines of trying to get some balance to this. I'm going to lay off your bill today just because I think that I want to see the final discussion of the 50%, but I do support where you're trying to head, and I appreciate you bringing this bill forward.
Thank you. Other questions from committee members? Okay. We're unable. 7. We need 9. We're unable to take a vote right now, Mr. Garcia, because we don't have quorum. Would you like to make a closing statement?
I'll just, in closing, thank again your committee staff and the conversation here. AB 1097 is accepting the recommendations made by the committee staff, and I look forward to your aye votes.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia, and thanks for your work on this bill thus far. We'll take a vote on this bill later. Thank you.
Thank you.
What's that? Mr. Moore. Would you like to do your bill? No, sure. $10.13, correct? The next author is Mr. Quirk, presenting AB 1013.
Good afternoon, Mr.
Good
Chair
afternoon.
and members. Assembly Bill 1013 would require the California Energy Commission to routinely adjust and update its public domain software that models energy usage. This bill would also make consumers aware of potential differences between the model and their actual energy use pattern. Both anecdotal evidence and controlled studies have observed that software-based energy analysis of inefficient existing homes tend to overpredict pre-retrofit energy use and retrofit energy savings. Additionally, when energy standards are adopted or updated, CEC compliance tools, including modeling software, are not always fully tested and ready to incorporate the new standards, causing inaccuracies in energy consumption estimates and forecasts. AB 1013 would address these problems by requiring the CEC to perform preliminary software tests using examples of common residential and non-residential buildings, and to make the results of these tests publicly available before approving a public domain program to estimate energy consumption. Additionally, this bill will require the CEC to ensure that its energy estimation software is publicly available at least 6 months before the effective date of adopted or updated energy efficiency standards. By ensuring that CEC simulation results are calibrated to actual energy use, homeowners will be better able to understand how their energy efficiency investments will likely affect their energy use and the impact of such investments will have on their energy bills. AB 1013 enjoys no opposition, and with me to testify in support is Bob Raymer with the California Building Industry Association. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. I'm Bob Raymer with the California Building Industry Association. I've also been asked to say me too for the California Business Properties Association. On a positive note, the CEC is already taking some aggressive steps to make sure the problems that were associated with the rollout of the 2013 computer program aren't replicated with the 2016 set of standards that are in the process of getting approved now. Our big support for this bill is for the long term. As we go through change of administration, we're also going to be seeing a huge change in the energy regs that will take effect in January of 2020. That will bring with it many changes to the computer program. This program needs to get beta tested, and we need to be part of that process. And so we strongly support this measure. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Raymer. Are there any other witnesses in support of this bill? Does anyone like to speak in support of this bill? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition to this bill? Questions to the... do we have any questions for the author? Would you like to close, Mr. Quirk?
It appears I made an excellent opening speech, so I will simply ask for your aye vote.
It was an excellent opening speech, Mr. Quirk. Unfortunately, we don't have quorum right now.
Yes.
Otherwise, I'm sure it would just fly on out of here. We're going to take a vote on this bill a little later.
right.
Thank you. Sorry? Oh, wait. Sorry? Are you okay? Ready for me to go? Who's going to chair?
You've got 2 bills, correct?
I have one. Mr. Daly, would you like to chair? I have a bill. I'm going to turn the gavel over to Mr. Daly as I present my bill.
I won't gavel you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. AB 1144 makes a small change in the Renewable Portfolio Standards bucket system to help public wastewater agencies finance infrastructure to transform an air pollutant into electricity. The RPS statute has a system of prioritized buckets for electric utilities to purchase renewable energy or renewable energy credits, known as RECs. The first priority bucket is the one for energy connected directly to California. That connected directly to California. That bucket is the largest and costs the most money. The third bucket at the other end is last priority and does not cost much or generate much revenue for the energy producer. Public agency wastewater treatment plants generate methane, which is an air pollutant. So wastewater agencies have two options. They can flare off that methane which reduces but does not eliminate all of the air pollution, or they can build the infrastructure that allows that methane to become electricity. Wastewater plants use a lot of electricity, so they generally use the electricity they generate on site, which reduces the electricity that their electric utility has to generate. Their use on site, however, creates an ambiguity in its treatment under the RPS law. It makes the renewable energy credit an unbundled REC, which may be in bucket 3, the lowest priority and low revenue bucket. So even on the even those on the PUC have suggested that this kind of unbundled REC might be treated as bucket 1, but the law is ambiguous. So AB 1144 clarifies this issue. Let me be clear, this is a very narrow adjustment that only applies to wastewater treatment facilities that create electricity owned by public agencies, first going into service after the law takes effect next year. It does not apply to any other kind of unbundled RECs from publicly owned electricity generating facilities. I seek to make this narrow adjustment for 3 reasons. First, it helps to finance water infrastructure. Second, this renewable energy infrastructure helps reduce air pollution in the form of methane. And third, this renewable energy is created and used right here in California, which is the essence of bucket 1. Let's help our public wastewater agencies finance the infrastructure that allows them to reduce air pollution and create renewable energy. I have a couple of witnesses who wish to speak on behalf of this bill.
Yes, Mr. Chairman and members, Mike Dillon representing the California Association of Sanitation Agencies. I'd like to thank Assemblyman Rendon and his staff for all of their hard work on this measure and for recognizing the important role that wastewater agencies can play in helping the state meet its climate objectives. With me today is Mark McDaniel, supervising engineer with Los Angeles County Sanitation District, who will briefly talk about the water energy nexus and what our agencies, both large and small, are doing to generate energy.
Thank you. My name is Mark McDaniel. I'm a supervising engineer in the Energy Recovery Engineering Section, Los Angeles County Sanitation Districts, representing both my agency and CASA today. Mr. Dillon mentioned the water energy nexus. This is an area where wastewater agencies were very cognizant of this issue. We generate where we can renewable energy from the methane coming off our digesters. Most of us have ongoing energy efficiency programs and water reclamation. Use of purple pipe water and now more direct potable water is a key energy saving strategy that we're all working on. Our agency has a large facility, an existing 20 megawatt digester gas plant, and even though we're big with 5 million people, we have plants in smaller communities, Palmdale, Lancaster, Valencia, where just because of the economies of scale, it's not possible to economically justify plants at these smaller facilities, and moving these into the RPS Bucket 1 would help make the case for us, and I think for many other cities and agencies, toward building energy facilities at these smaller plants. One other item to mention, we are now taking food waste at our wastewater treatment plant to make more methane, recycle the food waste. There's a lot of push to take this out of landfills, and this will generate more methane, and this bill will also help pay for projects that take food waste.
Thank you. We could pause for a second to call for the roll.
Yes. Rendon?
Here.
Rendon here. Patterson? Ishajian? Bonilla? Here. Bonilla here. Burke? Here. Burke here. Daly?
Here.
Daly here. Eggman? Here. Eggman here. Christina Garcia? Hadley? Roger Hernandez? Jones? Here. Jones here. Quirk? Here. Quirk here. Santiago? Here. Santiago here. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Other witnesses in support?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and committee members. Mario DiBernardo from the Northern California Power Agency. Want to thank the author for bringing this bill. We support the bill in concept. We've shared technical amendments with the committee, and we look forward to working with the author's office on those as the bill continues to move forward. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members. Cindy Howe for Southern California Edison. While this bill is incremental and very narrow, Southern California Edison supports counting on-site distributed generation toward the state's RPS goals in Bucket 1, and we are supportive of the bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. Gil Topidi with the California Municipal Utilities Association. We have a support, if amended, position. We're gladly working with the author on fine-tuning exactly proceeding and making this a very, very narrow application of turning some resources into Bucket 1. We just need to fine-tune that language a little bit more, and we'll be on there. Thank you.
Anyone else in support? Seeing none, those who are in opposition.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Matt Friedman on behalf of the Utility Reform Network. We have concerns about this bill on several fronts. Although we understand that there is a robust debate about the appropriateness of including behind-the-meter renewable technologies in the Category 1 definition under the Renewable Portfolio Standard, we're not sure why wastewater treatment plants deserve to be called out as having special status, particularly because these facilities are able, under current rules, to sign contracts for the wholesale sale of their generation to utilities, which would allow them to qualify under the product content category number 1 and not require them to be treated the same as an unbundled REC transaction. Also, we have concerns about double counting. Right now, if a behind-the-meter generator is producing power, it counts as an offset towards retail sales, thereby reducing the RPS obligation of the retail seller serving that customer. If the RECs associated with that generation can also be counted as generation by another retail seller, it's effectively a double count of the same unit of electrical output, which violates a fundamental principle of the RPS program, which is that every kilowatt hour counts once, not twice. So those are some of the concerns that we have. We understand that the issue of behind-the-meter renewables are going to be a hot topic in RPS expansion, but we're not sure why this should be dealt with on a one-off basis for a specific set of technologies with a specific set of owners. Thank you.
And Michael Bocadoro on behalf of the Ag Energy Consumers Association. We represent farmers, food processors, and fiber processors as ratepayer advocates before the PUC and the legislature. We have not taken a formal position of opposition, but we share many of the same concerns that you heard from Tern today about double counting and about one-offs. Dairy digesters would be a great example in Ms. Eggman's district or Mr. Dolly's district or Mr. Patterson's district. Why wastewater agencies? Why not dairy digesters? And we heard a little bit about methane capture and others. If you want bang for the buck, there is no comparison. If you're going to provide special treatment, it ought to be for some of these other technologies or treat them all the same. Second concern that we have as ratepayers is, are these appropriately the responsibility of ratepayers when you have ratepayers of LA County San who are going to enjoy these benefits? Why not their ratepayers paying for it? Why are they pushing it off to utility ratepayers? And the final concern is this issue of double dipping, triple dipping, and what I'm going to call quadruple dipping today. These projects are already eligible, as you heard from Matt Freeman, for SB 1122 feed-in tariff. So if they want to sell wholesale to the utility, they can very soon under Senate Bill 1122 that passed 2 years ago, along with other bioenergy projects in California. And with that, generate a bucket one REC, and that will transfer with the utility. And they can sell that power for about 13 cents a kilowatt hour, not an insignificant amount of revenue that should make all of these projects pretty economically viable pretty quickly. But more importantly, on-site generation at a wastewater agency is already eligible for the self-generation incentive program, which is funded by ratepayers in the state. It's also eligible for net energy metering, which is another subsidy for these types of projects coming from ratepayers in California. Under this bill, they get a triple dip of yet another ratepayer subsidized payment to the wastewater agency. And under legislation that CASA and BAC are sponsoring in the Senate, these very same electricity projects would be eligible for yet...
Wrap up, please. We have a lot of bills today.
Yeah. They would be eligible for yet one more renewable gas standard credit. So now we're talking about 4 potential dips at ratepayer expense for the very same project, and we just question whether or not they're providing enough benefits to justify that level of financial assistance from ratepayers.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak in opposition? Seeing none, members have questions? Go ahead.
So perhaps, Mr. Chair, you could first address the questions raised by Tern and others.
Sure, absolutely. Thanks. Thanks for the opportunity to do so. With respect to the double counting, we've been asking. We don't intend to provide opportunities for double dipping. We're looking to avoid double dipping, and we've asked Tern to provide language that would help to alleviate that concern. We have yet to receive that language. We're certainly open to doing so. With respect to agricultural ratepayers asking to subsidize the wastewater energy projects, agricultural ratepayers would actually benefit from this project. It would increase the supply of Category 1 power and increase competition within that market. With respect to the need for this legislation, since one of the assertions was that a lot of these folks are already eligible. This is simply to clear up the ambiguity in the language per the CPUC's concern about that ambiguity. And would anyone else like to add anything else?
just mention the self-generation incentive program has been in place for at least a decade, and the smaller wastewater facilities, we own 3 where we're flaring the gas. Even with that, it's not enough to make a project worthwhile. The extra value of the Bucket 1 RECs would help make a project economically pencil out.
Any questions by other members?
Move the bill.
I have a motion and a second. Mr. Wren, would you like to close?
I think I just did my close. I ask for your aye vote. Thank you.
Would you please, it's due pass to Natural Resources, I believe.
Yes, the motion is due pass, re-referred to Natural Resources Committee. Rendon?
Aye.
Rendon, aye. Patterson? Ashajian? Bonilla? Burke? Burke, aye. Daly? Daly, aye. Eggman? Eggman, aye. Christina Garcia? Aye. Christina Garcia. Hadley? Roger Hernandez? Jones?
Aye.
Jones, aye. Quirk?
Aye.
Quirk, aye. Santiago? Santiago, aye. Ting? Williams? Williams, aye. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9 to 0.
Bill's out.